Great Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back. I mean, we've been here the whole time. Where have you been? Hopefully you caught the 97.3 The Fan Roundtable. Now it's time for your midday hang to take over. Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Heilbrunn went from green to pink today, but always looking good. How are you today?
I'm great. I enjoyed that roundtable. I think people would like us to all be here for like 14 hours a day together and just talk all, I think that's a treat.
I tell you what, every single time, I mean, I start to get jealous of Ello at some point every time in the roundtable.
I can pick Tony's. I can listen to Tony talk baseball the entire hour.
And I love to engage with him on it too, because
Yes.
he's so thoughtful and you come at it from slightly, and then you find where you agree, and it's really exciting. Like, it's great.
It's also like, what the heck do any of us know when you're sitting next to Tony? You know what I mean? And so just let Tony speak. But it's nice that he allows us to throw our comments in there every once in a while. He probably thinks in his head, "Oh, I can't wait to talk after she gets done."
Except he says it's a different prefix. It's a he. I can't wait to talk after any one of these clowns gets done.
No, it's good.
Wonderful stuff. If you missed it, it's available on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube page that you can go back and check out the entire show. And now we're here for 3 hours of live local San Diego sports talk radio with you till 2 o'clock, when Gwen and Chris will roll right back in. Find out about Scraby's trip to the Scrabinator Suite, which turned out to be good luck yesterday. And we'll open up our show, as we always do, at 11 a.m. by talking some Padres baseball and getting into it. We didn't really get into yesterday's game during the roundtable. It's a lot more, what do you call that? Evergreen topics, right? Because they're going to replay the show. Are they replaying it at 5 o'clock? So if you did miss the roundtable, it will re-air live at 5 o'clock today. Very fair to the Gwen and Chris show. Excellent. So check that out as well. We can go hear ourselves talk. But we didn't chat too much about yesterday's game. So I just want to start by thanking the San Diego Padres for making everybody feel so much better going into this off day. By getting that offensive approach together that you and I were talking about for like 2 hours of yesterday's show. It felt like they took on Kyle Hendricks, a guy who's throwing 87 with slop, who had the advantage of the shadows during much of the time that he was in there. I'm not going to lie. There were some moments in the first couple of innings where I was getting pretty concerned on guys reaching outside the zone and tapping ground balls back to the mound or to shortstop. I thought, is this guy going to do it to us again? Is he gonna beat us again when he can't beat anybody else? And the answer was a resounding no. They smashed him. They put up the biggest line against Kyle Hendricks of any of the three teams that have faced him, including the Dodgers this year.
Maybe another small indication that this team might be a little different so far than ones in the past, right? Because they were able to get to Kyle Hendricks, who, yes, has seemed to have their number for the Padres teams in the past. I thought it was good to see that the Padres got on the board, the Cubs tied it, and then the Padres punched back. I thought that was a nice thing to do, like you said, before an off day, to kind of just like throw that final punch and then keep it going. I mean, they scored throughout multiple innings yesterday. They got out of some jams. They overcome, an error with Ha-Seong Kim, which allowed that home run to follow, so I thought they did a lot of good things yesterday. And like you said, gave themselves and everybody else a nice confidence boost leading into Los Angeles.
The thing that impressed me the most offensively is that they did the opposite of the thing we were talking about a lot yesterday. They didn't start ice cold, and the Padres have had two patterns. They've either started ice cold, been usually shut out for 5 innings, and then found something in the late innings, either something big or something small in the late innings, or they've been scoring in the first inning and then Operation Shutdown, shout out Derek Bell, from that point forward. So yesterday they scored the 2 runs early. And if we're being objective about it, those 2 runs came on a lot of soft contact in a row. Jurickson got sawed off, but the third baseman was in and the ball floated over his head. I think it was a 58-mile-an-hour hit. Ha-Seong dribbled one up the third baseline, another sub-60-mile-an-hour hit. And the third, there was 3 straight hits because Camposano, he actually got jammed inside and he muscled one that kind of corkscrewed into left field. So even then, it's like, okay, we're up 2-0, an error. A home run, which, by the way, came immediately after C struck the guy out.
Right.
And it was
That's why they were unearned.
Yeah, it was a perfect. I mean, well, Kim makes the error. Next guy up is Bush. Bush takes strike 3. Umpire doesn't call it. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like right there, like right in the zone. Shadows fooled the umpire because Cease's spin is hard to pick up, right? And the next pitch was the one that Bush bombed for a home run. So it really was like it's such a disheartening 2 runs to get to that 2-2, and for them to immediately come back, and it was this is what made me just go gaga, and I'm like, I can't wait to talk to Andy about it. Like, over the second baseman's head. And I'm talking about right-handed hitters, right? Machado, bang, right center field. And then it was Kim, bang, right center field. Profar was the one who put it out there from a left side. But I loved the approach as the game went on. They did what we asked them to do. They ground him down, and then Hendricks was helpless to get blasted by the end.
Yeah, it definitely is when you're able to just kind of slice and dice like that and you don't take the pressure off, right? And I like that the Padres did it in a number of different ways yesterday offensively. They had the home runs, obviously, from Pro and Cronenworth. They had a double, they had a triple, they had 4 walks. And then, like you said, they had singles. They were driving it to the gaps. They were just kind of making it hurt.
Yep.
Right. And that's what you want. And then they kept it going throughout the game, which was great. So it was a good thing for them. And like we've talked about, Craig, it would be great if they did a little bit more balance from game to game, but I know baseball doesn't always work that way, right? Like you've got to take what that game is giving you that day. I think the Padres will eventually start to string together some wins here, and whether they do it by a huge home run and a big inning or by just kind of these death by 1,000 cuts, it doesn't matter as long as they get the win. And if they have the ability to do it in a multitude of different ways, even better.
Yeah, these really affirming wins, and I feel like Monday's game, Wednesday's game, they're the kind of game that, you didn't just win it, you won it in a way that makes you feel good about the team. Those games are the ones we need to hang on to during this incredibly difficult 41-game stretch. We detailed it at the beginning of the year. Now we're just about at the halfway point, and we're about to get to one of the hardest spots, which is a 3-game series in LA. That's never something that the Padres have enjoyed doing since back to the days when like Eric Karros and Raul Mondesi were out there running around at Dodger Stadium. It's been a long time since we've had a good year at Dodger Stadium. So getting the series win, beating a team again, you're now up 1 on the Cubs going into your last series against them. All you have to do, you do it one more time. Now you don't have to finish a game ahead of the Cubs. You could finish even with the Cubs at the end of the year because tiebreakers aren't a playoff game anymore. It's your head-to-head. So just like with the Giants dropping from 4-3 to 3-4 was such a bummer, going 2-1 on the Cubs is a big deal.
Yeah, it's important. They're important games, and the tiebreakers do matter. We've seen that with the Padres in the past. Of course, it absolutely matters. I also love to watch Dylan Cease. Oh, my goodness. The ability for him to throw as high as he was, almost hitting 100, and then ramp it down to this 60-something mile an hour pitch just to fool hitters and keep them off their toes. And you loved watching that, and it was able to kind of stop what happened with Darvish and Joe Musgrove, those uncharacteristic starts that we saw with them. It totally flipped the tone of that game yesterday. So I thought that was a good sign as well.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about Dylan even as the hour progresses because, hey, that's what you traded for, is what you got yesterday. That's exactly what you were looking for when you made a big trade to start the season. But we just start, I think, with the offense because the offense is where we have seen, right? There's 2 things we've been worried about. Inconsistent offense, bullpen that gets a little leaky in the middle innings. Those have been the number 1 and 2 things that have been not great for the Padres at 7-8 so far. But when those things go right, you get really excited. And I thought on both sides, things went really right. And that includes the guys we talked about before as victory formula potentially developing here. Matsui, De Los Santos, Peralta, into Suarez, of course. And they didn't need Bobby Bullets yesterday, but those 3 guys are starting to lock in a little bit.
Exactly. Like you're seeing kind of the cream rise to the top there. And I think that those 3 I'd start to ride with. I feel more comfortable knowing they're coming into the game than we did a week or 10 days ago about what was going to happen in the bullpen whenever the starter left the game.
Satan's Blowfish in our chat here on YouTube, because we are a YouTube show as well, brings up something that I think is so true. Here's one of the things that we're starting to feel in the third time through the Padres rotation that you can start to get excited about for this team, which is like, okay, we got Darvish and Musgrove up top, and hey, they were a topic of the roundtable. Neither one is off to the best start of their career. But 3-4 is now Cease and King. So you get a great start from Cease. And the next thing you know, now you got Michael King to start your next series. And that feels as good as having any of those other three guys out there right now.
It really does. And it underscores what AJ Preller did in getting Dylan Cease. Because again, I know we talked about it, but it bears repeating. If they didn't get Dylan Cease, then you would have that number 4 and number 5 spot to fill. And having it go, the two guys that I think really truly will anchor this rotation, and I think that we all believe are going to be just fine with Musgrove and Darvish, and then Dylan Cease, and Michael King, who you could really flip-flop any of those guys. Any of those guys could start at the top of the rotation or slot into that number 2 or 3 spot. They're all equally, as advertised right now, right? So you just have this threat that I think is if they can continue this, if they can keep this up, and we all believe that the starting rotation is going to be a huge strength of this club, then it's really going to be a winning formula for this Padres team. Those offensive guys are going to go out there and you need to put up runs, of course, but you feel just so much better playing behind a guy like that.
Yeah, and it gets you excited for how things can develop over the course of the season, because a team built on starting pitching has the opportunity to grow as the summer goes along, because as those guys are getting those extra 3 outs, 4 outs, 5 outs compared to the opponent, right now that doesn't matter. Like right now it's completely irrelevant. All the bullpen arms are fresh. Everyone says, I'm good to go. I'm good to go tomorrow. Like that's April. But when you get to July, August, those same relievers that are saying, yeah, I'm good to go. I went yesterday. I'll go again today. They hurt a little bit more than they're letting on to the coaches when they do, and their performance starts to suffer. We saw that in 2021 when Jace Tingler was always aggressive at pulling his starters, was always an inning too soon instead of an inning too late. And come August, when their starting rotation further depleted, there was nothing left in the bullpen to back them up. Every single guy was completely out of gas. So I love the long-term knock-on effects of having a good starting rotation.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. If you use these guys too early, their arms are essentially going to become mostly spaghetti noodle by the midsummer, and they're going to have to take some breaks. They're going to have to figure out ways to get going. And most of these guys, it's really hard to sit players, and it's such a fine balance in terms of you need them to be okay, and they're going to tell you they're okay, but they're not going to feel full strength. You're protecting them by having a starting rotation that can go 6-7 innings right now. The starting rotation will also ebb and flow. We saw it even just this week. But if you can have some kind of balance, if you're not utilizing this bullpen, if they don't have the most innings in all of Major League Baseball, because that's not a good thing early on in the season, right? It means you're going to your bullpen way too early. It's going to be huge for this team. And also, we just named the top 4 starters, but nothing against Matt Waldron. Look, whoever fills that 5 spot, if you can do an admirable job, get this team to 5 or 6 innings and turn it over to the bullpen, even 5, on that 5th day, that's no problem. Our bullpen's rested. We're able to use some guys. We can go out there and we can roll with that. That's never an issue. And if you get more, it's even more of a, whipped cream on top.
You nailed it. When you've got 4 starters that you can generally count on to go 6, your 5th can go 5.
Right.
And then you've got that extra bullpen in reserve that you're like, oh, hey, this is the night that everyone's going to go hard. And then we're back to you the next day. And if it's working, if it's clicking, then it's beautiful. The last time it clicked to me perfectly for the Padres was 2022, that point in the summer when they had the 6-man, when they had Matt Gore in there as well. And it just felt like every guy was fresh. Every guy was going a little bit longer. Every guy was looking a little bit sharper as a result. And then the relievers weren't getting overworked and they were able to pitch into October effectively.
Yeah. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to roll, but if you can get patches, if you can get chunks where it's pretty fluid and the balance is good, you're really going to be in a good spot when it comes time to making that push into the playoffs. And, last year was a 6-man, right?
For a minute it was, yeah.
And then they moved back. Cause I also thought about that with Darvish and Musgrove. They've been, I think, used to a 6-man for a while now, for a few years.
Yeah.
And now you're going back to it. And look, these guys don't care. They just want the routine. They want to know, is it going to be 5 days, 6 days? You just don't want to be switching it all the time. But that's also something. They're settling into that.
Decent amount of off days in the first, I think, 40 plus games of the season.
Great point.
Too. So it could happen later in the year. I just don't know who that 6th starter would be.
No, I don't think you'd do it right. I don't think you would have a 6-man right now.
Yeah. I mean, because it'd be Brito.
Right.
Probably. And then I don't know.
Yeah, you go with the five-man rotation right now for sure.
Well, let's take our first time out. 11:16. Love continuing to talk Padres baseball. Deep dive continues as we talk about next segment, Rush Hour.
The movie.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to welcome on Media Melanie. We're going to talk about Rush Hour. No, we're going to talk about Jerks and Profar and Hassan Kim.
The duo, the dynamic duo who have a custom-made bat, custom-made shoes that feature themselves.
Correct. And off to different starts to the season, but hopefully things are starting to trend in the right way for our beloved Hassan Kim. We'll talk about them both as we are underway now. Annie and Elsten roll until 2 o'clock on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:21 on the fan. Welcome back. Annie and Elsten here with you. We are rolling until 2 p.m. today when Gwen and Chris will check in. No Padres baseball today, off day. Team is, according to Tony, on a bus. Well, on like 3 buses. 3 luxury buses.
I think they are leaving tonight. This afternoon, tonight to go up to Los Angeles. Yes, They bus to Los Angeles.
Makes sense. Why would you fly to
Why
LA?
waste your time flying to LA?
I mean,
it
they're
would take
not
as
like
much time.
they're luxury buses. They're not,
Yeah,
not
but
like buses you ride on.
do they get a police
the street
escort
here.
the entire way?
No.
I would imagine probably not. They're not as big as college football, I guess. They don't get the police escort up the freeway.
No. I mean, that's usually a shorter drive, though, right?
Yeah,
it's not like
that
all the
far.
way from San Diego to LA.
I know, it's not
Cops
that
are just
bad.
like, cool, man. I'll just, I guess, drive this now.
Even if you had a police escort, do you think it'd be almost impossible to get through LA traffic anyway?
Right. Yeah.
There's
what
not
do
a
they
lot
do?
of
They
open
just stop.
spots. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, get out of the way. Where do you want me to go? There's nowhere to
there's
nowhere
nowhere to
for me to go.
There's nowhere to go. So with that means the Matt Scraby Show will be back on today from 6 to 7. So we look forward to hearing the full Scrabinator night, Scrabinator day report from yesterday's big Padres win over the Cubs. Within that game, a couple of things happened. A player who's been riding high soared even higher. And at least for a moment, a player who had been riding low soared even lower. Jurickson Profar went 3 for 3, had a double, which he tried to turn into a triple, had a home run, RBI, had the first single that got things going. We talked about earlier, that little kind of corkscrew hit off of Kyle Hendricks. 3 for 3, 333 is where the average is now. And the OPS, of course, at an astounding 1,012 MVP territory for Jurickson Profar through 15 games, who has said afterwards that he feels like San Diego is his home. It reminds him of Curacao. It gives him that confidence of how he feels when he's at home. And this is, I saw someone say this yesterday, but like, we need to study Jurickson Profar for science. This is like one of the only players in history that comes to San Diego and gets better every time he comes.
I mean, he's a good player. Like, he has good baseball instincts. He plays the game hard. He's a winning player at his core. Jurickson Profar is a huge competitor. He has this smile that he flashes that everyone loves, and he does love the good vibes and the positivity and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, like, he understands baseball well. He's a good baseball player. And when you have that kind of experience in the league and you've made it to 10 years, like he has, 10 years of service, you learn a lot of things along the way. You see a lot of mistakes made. He's been a resource also for Fernando on him growing into and maturing into a player that can have longevity in the league. And remember, he was part of the Rangers. I mean, he was part of the Rangers in terms of seeing also what it meant to win during that time and to be competitive and everything. So I look at Jurickson. I thought Kevin Acee had a really interesting quote in his newsletter this morning where Jurickson talked about how difficult it was last year in Colorado. He didn't have a spring training. He was also a Boris guy at the time, no longer is with Boris either. And he went into, got signed by the Rockies right when the season started. They had him play 2 games, like to get ready. And he wasn't ready. He said it like, I was not ready to go, but they were like, nope, you need to come play for us. We need you. And he never was able to get it back on track. So I think that he's a good player who struggled a bit in Oakland for that reason as well. It just wasn't a good fit for him. He was moved around in the infield. It was a little harder for him to acclimate, but he found in San Diego comfort. And we've seen it happen with so many different kinds of players. And he's honest about it. And I think that it's brought out the best in him.
Yeah, and it's a great thing to see. The Padres signed Jurickson Profar at a bargain basement deal.
$1 million.
$1 million deal. Jurickson had a really good season in 2022. And I remember when we were talking about it afterwards and when the season was over on the hot tub, and everyone was telling me that, Jurickson's going to opt out. And I said he should not opt out. Like, he just shouldn't opt out. This is a place that he fits. This is a place that fits him. And if you think that he's going to be like the most coveted free agent on the market, he's going to be in for a surprise. And Keith Law that year rated him the number 10 free agent out of 50 in the market. And of course, as you just mentioned, None of that came to pass. He instead became one of those Boris hanger-oners, signed at the very end, hope to work your way in. And just looking at his stats, as you brought that up, he had a 644 OPS in the month of April. Last season, he had 219. He didn't get off to a good start. In May, he was okay. And then the rest of the season with Colorado, he was bad.
Yeah.
And, again, stats sometimes can be confused as hateful opinions. Somebody tweeted me yesterday, like, are you going to stop hating Jurickson Profar? When are you going to get on the radio and admit how wrong you were about Jurickson Profar? This is a point of fact for the audience. Led the league in negative WAR last year. Led the major leagues in negative WAR last year. But we have a reason behind it. Right.
Well, not only that, but stats are good, but they're not everything. Like stats, you've got to I think that's where if you're a good manager or a good coach or whatever, you look at the numbers. The stats tell you a story, but they don't tell you the whole story. They don't. If you're around the player or whatnot, they don't tell you they don't tell you the intangibles. They don't tell you things that you're seeing with the eye test. Like there's still something to be said for all of that, including, some of the background that happened last year. And so I think that we can get into trouble when we lean too much on stats. And stats is a predictor for guys' success. They do predict it sometimes. I'm not saying stats are irrelevant, but it's not always the end all be all. I thought for Jurickson too, he trained with Fernando Tatis Jr.'s dad in the offseason, just like Fernando did. That was his hitting coach. It works out real well for the two of them whenever they work with him. It also unlocked a little bit more in Profar. And he did that that year in 2022 as well. Mm-hmm. And then he also played in winter ball in the Dominican, and then also played the Caribbean series in early February. So just like Fernando, he came into spring, like that was his spring training, so he came into spring training almost like, you had all your practice already under you.
So there could even be an argument to be made that he's ahead of a lot of the players in Major League Baseball right now from a preparation and in terms of your body rhythms, that everyday rhythm that you get into.
It could catch up. We don't know what is going to sustain the whole season, but he could be very well a little bit ahead.
Well, we talked about it earlier in the week that he's outperforming his expected numbers, and that nothing changed with yesterday, although home runs are always good for stats. But
he did a few different things. He had a few different, he had also the double. He had, I don't know. He had a few different ways of hitting yesterday when he went 3 for 3 with a home run.
We're seeing the best we can out of Jurickson Profar, and it's amazing. And everyone celebrates when one of your players is playing as hot as they possibly can play. And I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is like I almost feel like the water level rises with Padres fandom too. Oh, what? You don't think Jurickson Profar is going to hit 333 all year? You're a hater. Like Jurickson Profar's career OPS is 710. He's at 1,000 right now.
It's hard for any of these. I don't look, Jake Cronenworth is doing a bang up job. It would be probably unfair to look at Pro or Crow or any of these guys and say that their numbers through 15 games are going to sustain for the rest of the year. Like that would say that would be something super unrealistic and rare. Right. That we'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, because throughout a baseball season, as we talked about in the roundtable, there's ups and there's downs. You very rarely stays at water level for the entire season.
Absolutely. So that's all. We can't expect him to hit like this all year. If you do, you're setting him up. You're putting that on him, and that's not fair. What he's done is he has completely fulfilled this club's confidence in Jurickson Profar. And the thing I love the most about it is, as you were just talking about, he did the work. He did the work in the offseason to make this. He knew if he comes in this year and he bombs out and he plays like he did last year in Colorado, that's it. He'll be in the Caribbean series for the rest of his career.
Yeah, it was a $1 million risk, and you would just, essentially like Nelson Cruz last year, you would just cut ties at some point and say thanks for your service,
right?
And that's it.
Now on the other side is the guy who's had, and maybe has, as many expectations and as much pressure on him coming into a season as anybody on this team, and that's Ha-Seong Kim in his walk year. What kind of market is he gonna set? Jung-Hoo Lee just got $115 million. Ha-Seong Kim has done more. Is he going to become the highest paid Korean player in history? Where's he going to go? Is he going to play here next year? Is he going to play somewhere else next year? He had to be the ambassador for Korea. He had to have everything on his head for months, getting ready for the Korea series. And given shortstop, having it taken away from Xander Bogaerts and given back to him. And come the fourth inning yesterday, I felt like we were at the low point of Ha-Seong Kim's ebb and flow for a long time here in San Diego. Another error, and it becomes a home run right after it. And on the heels of losing Sunday's game with 2 balls that involved him defensively and plays that he did not make that were errors. And I'm going, holy, is this gonna? And then he comes back, he gets that triple, he gets a hit later in the game. A 2-hit game does a wonder for your average at this point in the year. And I've got to hope that maybe that's the moment. Like, there it is. We've got past the worst point.
Like, that was his rock bottom.
That's right. And then you bounce off the floor of the pool and you shoot right back up through the water, you know?
And just to circle back the reference that Craig made of Rush Hour, in case anybody was listening and doesn't know, these two call each other the Rush Hour duo. Ha-Seong Kim, Jackie Chan, and Jerks and Profar, Chris Tucker, they have like all kinds of bats and shoes that make light of it, so that's kind of their thing. But they're very good friends, just like as in with Fernando Tatis Jr. And I would think that right now Jerks and Profar is up in his guy. Like, he is like, keep your head up, let's go. Because you know what, Jerks and Profar has been through this too. When Jerks and Profar played, I think it was second with Oakland, and there were times that he had a real tough time. And I know that's different because Ha-Seong Kim has played shortstop and has shown, that he is an elite shortstop, but he hasn't played it for a year. I mean, let's also give maybe a little bit of thought to that. Like, he got used to kind of doing what he did last year, right? And moving a little bit and playing second and doing his thing. And maybe he's also just kind of shaking off some of the rust of playing shortstop again.
Sure. I mean, I suppose so. Every time he makes an error, I'm sure Xander's over there at second base going like, I might have been able to do that.
I do think, though, it's been a weird offseason for him. And there's no way, like you mentioned, there's no way Ha-Seong Kim has been immune. He's even brought it up in some interviews that he would like to stay with the Padres, or he's happy he's back this year. There's no way he's been immune to the talk of, will you continue to be a Padre? Are they going to extend you? This is your free agent year. He was the highest of highs last year. You feel a lot of pressure to keep that going, to get the contract that you want also at the end of the year that your agent is hoping you get, and things like that. So it's a different feel this year for him. And I believe, and whether or not I can't quantify this, but I believe that Korea played a part. It wasn't just the week in Korea. It was everything leading up to it. He did a lot for MLB, did a lot for the Padres, and this, video work. It was constantly Ha-Seong Kim and Korea. And I think that could have just been a little bit exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this contract, some guys reply differently to a contract year, right? There's some people who the contract year, they leave it all out on the field. They take it to a higher level. Blake Snell did that last year. Juan Soto's trying to do that this year in New York. There's other guys who go the other direction on a contract year. They overwork. And because Ha-Seong Kim was already giving it his all, as opposed to someone who's like, I'm going to take it to the next level. He was already at his max level because we know that's why we love him so much. We know that he is giving every single ounce of what he has every day.
Like, that's the thing. I mean, this guy is probably beating himself up so hard when he gets off the field. He takes this so seriously and very personally. And, he does not want to be committing errors on the baseball field. And he feels like he lets down his teammates every time. So I think that this is hopefully, like you said, a learning experience for him, something that he will look back and be like, man, those first few weeks of the season, real shaky, but then go out and play. It's not like the guy forgot how to play defense. He knows how to play. He just is having a little bit of a trouble with the focus right now.
One thing that I always love about talking baseball with you is you can always provide a human perspective and even a personal side, a reporter's perspective, and then maybe I can look at a tactical side or a strategic side. And what I would say is that the Padres have shown as much faith as they can possibly show in Ha-Seong Kim, because consider if you were sitting in AJ Preller's chair right now, all right, you had opportunities to trade Ha-Seong Kim this winter I guarantee you. You had opportunities. And in every one of those opportunities, you were quite possibly trading him at the peak of his value, at the ultimate peak of his value. By hanging on to him, you're not only guaranteeing that you don't have the chance to get something for him, because if you don't re-sign him, he's gone, right? You maybe offer him a QO or something, but you're not going to get anything back. But also, now look, whatever trade value he had on February 15th is different today, off to a bad start with fewer weeks that you would be able to control him, and even off to a shaky start defensively. Like, if he called the same guy that he had a deal lined up in January and said, hey, let's make the same deal today, he might not get that deal today. So I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying that as a sign of how the Padres care about Ha-Seong Kim, want him to do the best job he possibly can, that they've given a lot of equity away from a poker standpoint in order to keep him where he is.
It's a good point, and I think it's fair to say that there's, I mean, as we know, there's risk and reward in holding on to these guys or moving them too quickly. And when you look at Ha-Seong Kim, if they don't sign him to a long-term extension or an extension in San Diego, or sorry, yeah, I guess it would be an extension at this point, but and honestly, depending on how this season goes, that could maybe be negotiated to a you know, I'm not saying that he's going to have a bad season, but we don't know what those numbers are going to be at the end and what that number of for his contract, what kind of money he will make this year versus if his numbers ended where they were last year, right? But if you're not planning to, right, if you know we do not have the money for that, then it would be prudent for them to have either traded him at his peak or trade him at the trade deadline if the Padres aren't going to make a run for it. Because otherwise, yeah, he's walking away at the end of the season.
We're going to wrap up our Padres deep dive hour in our next segment. Switching over to a couple other guys who we discussed a little bit during the roundtable the hour prior. Jackson Merrill is continuing to build new levels of excitement and expectation day after day. He's doing something that we're like, really? You can do that too? We'll talk about that, and Dylan Cease and the impact he's having now on the rotation, and maybe the impact he'll have on the rotation for the next couple of years. Both of those topics still to come in our Padres Deep Dive Hour. At the top of the hour, it'll be the 12 o'clock Sports Fix and all the news, a Masters update, plenty more. So stay right here. You're listening to Annie and Elsten on The Fan. Listen to Sam Levitt's podcast, Inside San Diego Baseball. Sam will cover everything going on with the Padres. Find it at 973thefansd.com, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Annie and Elsten back. We're wrapping up our 11 a.m. Padres Deep Dive Hour. We usually give the whole hour to Padres baseball. And seeing as we had the 97.3 The Fan Roundtable, gobble up hour number one like a hot piece of pizza of our show. We are rolling right through.
Hot piece of roundtable pizza.
Delicious roundtable pizza.
It's good stuff.
Like those crispy hot pepperonis, the ones that get a little curly, a little bit spicier than a regular pepperoni.
The hotter pepperonis?
Yeah, I like those. They've got
Crunchy.
those.
You got to go, like, when you order pizza, you got to put pepperoni on top. Make sure it's on top because you get a nice little crisp on top.
Yes. Yes.
It's part of my Filippi's order.
You have to order that special, or else they put it under the cheese.
Yeah, usually they do. You got, hey man, like we talked about secret menus. I got the Filippi's secret menu on lock, Craig.
Wow,
a different topic for a different day.
Indeed, it
Maybe
is.
ask us anything.
Indeed, it is.
It's good stuff. And there's certain Filippi's that have different menus than others. Oh, what? Good stuff.
Oh dear. Now we're learning the true local knowledge.
We're cooking with the Italians here. Let's go.
Beautiful. So we talked a lot about Jackson Merrill on the roundtable. We're not going to rehash completely, but I do want to go back to the very first thing that Ben mentioned, Annie, along the way. Jackson Merrill walked twice yesterday, and I'm going to keep bringing this up. Okay, I mean, he walked twice yesterday. He's walked 7 times. I love to do your number one favorite thing, on pace for, right? If you kept going just like this, but if he walks like, it would be a 70 walk season. 70 walk season.
Yeah.
That's real. Like, that's legitimate. That's the kind of thing that makes you the leadoff hitter the next year.
It shows us that he is mentally ready for these big league at bats, and that he's going to be patient and he's going to do what the team needs, at least at this point. Like, I've thought that that's been great to see from him.
He's having great at bats almost every single day. He really is.
Selective.
Yes, he's from the first week to now. You've seen that growth, where that first week or two, he was swinging at pretty much every pitch he thought he could get his barrel to, whether it was inside or outside the strike zone. But when I compare the at-bats Merrill had yesterday to Toddy, like, Fernando was the one that was reaching outside the zone over and over again. Jackson's chase rate, which still, the StatCast slider, it's the bluest one by far, is his chase rate, but it's getting better. And here's another thing I won't stop bringing up. We don't even talk about him in center field. Like, no one's going like, well, holy cow, we got a shortstop in center field. He's never played the position. Every night we're getting worried because the ball goes out into the gap and he gets the wrong jump, or the ball's going over his head, or he's diving for stuff and dropping it. Like, nothing. Knock wood. There's been nothing. We don't even mention it. He's been that solid.
Because he looks like he's just been out there playing for years. I mean, there's no drama when it comes to him. He's, again, going to be learning some of these parks. There will be some growing pains, but honestly, I don't feel like there's been any huge drop off there. Maybe he'll get tested a little bit more throughout the season, but he's an athlete. He's showing that he can handle it. I think it helps to also have Fernando out there and Jurickson to his right. But yeah, I think for Jackson Merrill, what's been cool to see is that he's also been, like you said, he's been adjusting. He's been looking at maybe a few things that he did the first week and then deciding, okay, now I can be a little bit more patient. I can be a little bit more selective. I've got these guys behind me. If I just get on base, get the top of the lineup going, they're going to be able to drive me in. Things like that, where it's like, it's just a very, it's a well thought out mentality. Honestly, it's a big league mentality. And so it's been good to see.
Now, he's playing Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is the hardest game on earth. It is. So
it's not easy.
It's one of the things that, again, I try, and when things are super high, think about the other side. When things are super low, think about the other side, because it always comes around. And what drives me crazy is people who, after 15 games, make, Manny Machado should be sent down and Jurickson Profar should go to the Hall of Fame. Like these types of like completely wild. And I know that's hyperbolic. That's not right. But right now, Jackson Merrill is hitting 300. He's drawing walks. He's playing incredible. And it is April of the first month of his career.
Yeah. Forget what we say. Listen to Tony Gwynn Jr., who has played ball, knows ball, understands ball. And he is saying there's going to be a rookie wall at some point.
Right.
You're going to run into it because it is so rare that you don't. And there's nothing inherently bad about that. It's another chance to learn, but it is going to matter how quickly, once he hits that, how he can adjust again and then get himself back going again. And there's no right or wrong way about it. It's just going to be something that he's going to encounter and he's going to experience.
I'm going to give you an example from a lot earlier in my life. And do you remember JT? I'm sure you remember JT Snow.
Yes.
Yes.
First baseman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Really. And a lot of the times people think of him with the Giants because he spent a lot of time with the San Francisco Giants. He appeared in the World Series
Yes.
for the San Francisco Giants. But he was drafted as a Yankee, but he came up as an Angel. The Angels traded for JT Snow, and JT Snow came up as an Angel. And he came up at a time when I was, a much bigger Angels fan in college, 1992 in September. But then 1993, they gave JT Snow first base. And we're like, you are now, I think Wally Joyner out and JT Snow in. And in April of 1993, his first career month as a big leaguer, JT Snow hit 343, 6 homers, 389 on base, 687 slugging, 1,076 OPS. He was already a good first base. He came up as a great glove. And it was like JT Snow might be the next franchise player for the California Angels. And then in May of 1993, he hit 124 with 21 strikeouts, 270 slugging percentage, 522 OPS. It literally got cut in half. And they were like, maybe he's a minor leaguer. Maybe he's no good at all. And he bounced back in June to hit 292. And then he hit 159. And then he hit 222. And then he hit 297. This is my point. And JT Snow wound up being a rock solid major leaguer for years and years to come. But when you come up and you hit everything in the first month, every single team puts you on the scouting report now and says, what do we need to do? How do we need to handle this kid? What's the one thing he hasn't done well yet? Let's start giving him nothing but that. And that's what May offers for Jackson Merrill, is everybody's adjustments. How he works through that is going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. And this is what baseball is. It's a little cat and mouse game. There's adjustments happening. Mike Schultz calls it, be an elite adjuster, because you're going to get hit. And now, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to swing the next time? How are you metaphorically going to hit back and change, not necessarily always even change yourself or change your stance or do anything like that, but just mentally understand this is what they're doing to me now. And I might need to do this. I might need to do that. My toolbox widens. And I want to point out one other thing about Jackson Merrill, and it's that whenever rookies come up for their first year and they're able to stay healthy and play the year is so much longer and more intense than anything that they've ever been used to. The amount of games in terms of the importance of the games, the amount of time that you're playing. And that is why sometimes you'll see Mike Schultz also resting Jackson Merrill, because their bodies are not yet conditioned even to sustain the mental fatigue, the physical fatigue. And you saw it with Ha-Seong Kim his first year coming over from the KBO. It was the same sort of thing. It's different. It's different than anything these guys have experienced. And that is when guys jump from their first year to their second to their third, they learn things from guys like Manny Machado or Fernando or Jerkson or whoever about rehab, about taking care of your body throughout the entire course of a long season, things like that. So you're going to be dealing with not only the adjustments of pitchers and the team that you're facing, but also just the mental and physical fatigue of a full year of Major League Baseball.
So we're excited to see what the future is. And I think really we've had a very consistent message on the show. It's exciting to see this kid play. And by the way, when I bring up JT Snow had a bigger hole in his swing his rookie year than Jackson Merrill has shown at all. And I'll tell you that from 30 years ago, watching him play. And that's why I have brought up now on the roundtable and on this show the Christian Yelich comparison, because Yelich was a lot more coming up known as bat to ball skill. Like, he's going to be able to get the bat to the ball. It's just a matter of maybe he'll hit 7 home runs, maybe he'll hit 9, but he could hit 280 and he could spray the ball around the field. And that's what we've seen from Jackson Merrill. He barrels the ball, he hits it hard on the line, and he sprays it around the field.
Yeah, and I love also what Tony pointed out alongside that Christian Yelich comparison about let the home runs, let the power come later. You know what I mean? Like, don't put so much on this guy, so many expectations. Because, yeah, it's great if he does it. It's great if he does it now if it comes sooner than you expected. But it is really what you're looking for is that you're looking for guys to hit to all parts of the field. You're looking for them to drive the ball, and the power necessarily or putting more on this kid is not going to help. Like look at baseball, as you look at any kind of success, it's not necessarily linear. It doesn't always just move in progressive steps. It's up, it's down, it's lays flat for a while. It's all over the place usually. And so allowing the space for that to happen, I think is really, really important, especially because I get it. I'm in the society too. We're always looking for more, right? We're always looking for, well, wait till he starts doing this, wait till he starts doing that. Let's just let him be.
Let's see what happens.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. We're at the end of our Padres deep dive hour, but we got a fun hour of Annie and Elsten coming up. As always, the 12 o'clock hour. It's where things start to,
We are already at 12. Thank you, Roundtable,
Yeah, thank you,
for
Roundtable.
making the first 2 hours go by real fast.
really, really fast. But you're not going to want to leave. We're going to, first off, get you the 12 o'clock sports fix, which is going to, just in a flash, get you caught up on everything that's going on in the world of sports. Then there's been a lot, and I mean a lot, that's come out during this last hour of our show in regards to the federal investigation into Ippei Mizuhara, the former translator for Shohei Otani. What the feds are alleging not only is great news for Shohei Otani in terms of legal exposure or anything else. It's not great news in terms of how much money was stolen from him. Terrible news on that front, but it paints an even darker and more vivid picture. And we will get into it in the hour, and then we'll wrap things up in the hour by playing Fast Money. So you're not going to want to go anywhere. 12 o'clock hour is jam-packed. It's Annie and Elsten right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Lunch hour has arrived on a Thursday. Welcome back, everyone. It's your new midday hang. Annie and Elsten here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3. The Fan, alongside Annie Heilbrunn and Braden Soprano. Craig Elsten, thrilled and privileged to be here with you today. Thank you so much for making us part of your day, whether you're at work, whether you're at home. You got to be hungry for all the news in the lunch hour. Let's bring it to you. Sports world is clicking right now. We got daytime baseball. We've got the first round of the Masters live and underway. Let's get you caught up to date on everything. We will start things off with Annie, who's got all the latest, and there's some big stuff in baseball news.
All right, the biggest story, and I'm sure we will talk about this much more. Mizuhara, Shohei Otani's longtime interpreter and friend, has been charged with bank fraud. He is accused, according to reports, of transferring more than $16 million from Shohei Otani's account to an alleged illegal sportsbook. Federal authorities announced in LA courts. So we will get to more details on that, but that's a lot. 16 million, quite a bit. Yoan Moncada has been ruled out for 3 to 6 months with a left adductor strain. Moncada is the third White Sox hitter to get injured while running to first base through the first 11 games of the season, and the second to strain his left adductor muscle in the thigh. All were expected to be middle of the order hitters for their respective teams. The Padres took 2 out of 3 against the Cubs to win their first series of the season yesterday. Dylan ceased through 6 innings, allowing 2 unearned runs. Jerks and Profar went 3 for 3 in the 10-2 win. Home runs from Profar and Jake Cronenworth. The Padres have an off day today. They will start a 3-game series against LA tomorrow.
All right, flipping over to what's happening right now. Live scores with Braden.
We do have some live scores, and I do have a college basketball story news that I'll get to in just a little bit. But live scores last night, a lot of scores throughout Major League Baseball. Almost every game was in action. We start with this one in particular. What happened to the Houston Astros?
Oh, my gosh.
Right field and deep. Tucker is back. And it's off the top of the wall and gone.
Vinny Pasquantino hit his first home run of the year last night for the Royals. It made it an 8-2 ball game as the Royals went on to destroy the Houston Astros 11-2. Seth Lugo got the win for Kansas City. Thinking, wow, this is a good day for Kansas City. Wrong. Kansas City is up 9-0 right now. Middle of 3 against the Houston Astros, who continue to be just absolutely abysmal to start the season. I'm not saying hit the panic button yet, but I guess for Padres fans, it could be worse. You could be the Houston Astros right now. Other finals from last night on a Wednesday night. Twins beat the Dodgers 3-2. Phillies over the Cardinals 4-3. Mariners beat the Blue Jays in 10, 6-1. Rays over the Angels 4-2. That one was interesting. The end of the Angels game, Ron Washington got into a feud with Doug Eddings at the end of the game. It was such bad umpiring from Doug Eddings. And the crowd on a Wednesday, you could hear the crowd ripping him for the last 3 innings on every single pitch. Angels thought they got jabbed yesterday. I don't necessarily know if that was the case, but the Rays beat the Angels 4-2. Giants actually beat somebody other than the Padres yesterday. They beat the Nationals 7-1. Diamondbacks win 5-3. Rockies left the bases loaded in the 9th inning. Guardians of the White Sox 7-6. Padres of the Cubs 10-2, as we mentioned. Brewers beat the Reds 7-2. Royals over the Astros, as I mentioned. Red Sox lose to the Orioles in Beantown 7-5. It was the Marlins with Ryan Weathers getting the W over the Yankees. That would be their, wait for it, anybody? Second win of the season.
Second win
of the season for the Miami Marlins. Rangers beat the A's 6-2 deep in the heart of Texas. As for today, not as many games. A lot of teams have off days. 3 of them have already gotten underway. The Oakland Athletics, for the time being, lead the Rangers 1-0 in the bottom of the second. Royals lead the Astros 9-0, as we mentioned, the bottom of the third. And the New York Metropolitans, they're doing a pretty good job in Atlanta this week. They're up 10-3 middle of the seventh inning against the Atlanta Braves. So maybe that was rock bottom, Craig.
Yeah.
Because they have really turned it around.
They bounce back.
With the win, they'd be 5-7. They're looking to take, I think, 2 out of 3 from Atlanta. Could be 3 out of, maybe 3 out of 4, but I have to double check on that. But they did a pretty good. They're not losing the series, I will say that.
People thought Gary Cohen was being negative. He was being positive.
He
He's saying here at 0-5 with nobody in the stands. This is rock bottom, and everything's up from here.
Up from here.
You know, sometimes you get both feet on rock bottom and you push off and you jump right back up to the top of the pool. Other times you get out that diamond edge drill and you just keep drilling.
Wise.
It's very true.
He knew. Guys from the future drove home in his DeLorean. That's it for me. We'll get back with college baseball and basketball next.
All right. First update for me is short, and then we'll get to the golf a little bit later. But on the arena side, just 2 results to respond to from yesterday. San Diego Gulls scored 3 goals in the first period, and that was enough. They held on for a 4-2 win on the road in Bakersfield. Get that empty netter late. Tough loss for the Condors. They dropped from 5th to 6th in the AHL Pacific. Gulls are already out of the playoffs. They continue a 5-game road trip Friday against rival Ontario at Toyota Arena. San Diego Mojo, Annie, I went to go check in on our beloved Mojo last night. They air the games on YouTube. And so I was like, okay, I think Survivor was over. I went, let me go. Oh, it's already over? The game's already over? Uh-oh. Bad sign.
Oh, no.
Sure enough. Atlanta vibe again. Straight sets again. Atlanta vibe.
So many vibes.
I mean, they're 14-4.
Yeah.
They're great. They're the number 1 team. So Mojo lost all 4 to them this year, lost straight sets, all 4. But here's the great news. They've got 11 games left and none are against Atlanta. So at 5-8, but 5-4 against the rest of the league, got a good chance to see the Mojo rise in that second half and get into a playoff position. There's the local arena report. Here's Annie with the NBA NHL news.
All right, in the NBA, a showdown last night at the top of the Western Conference as the Denver Nuggets took down the Minnesota Timberwolves 116-107. Nikola Jokic scored 41 points on 16 of 20 shooting, dominating the game. The Nuggets are now alone in first place in the West. A little further down the table, the Dallas Mavericks improved to 16-2 in their last 18 games. They're a game behind the Clippers for 4th place, and Phoenix won to move within a half game of the New Orleans Pelicans for 6th place, trying to escape the play-in. In the East, the Cavs beat the Grizzlies while the Magic lost to the Bucks, moving Cleveland into 4th place and Orlando dropping to 5th. 2 important games in the NBA today, with the Knicks heading to Boston and the Pelicans taking on the Sacramento Kings. And in the NHL last night, the Edmonton Oilers beat Las Vegas 5-1. Tonight, there are 10 games on ice. The biggest is Detroit at Pittsburgh. Both teams are just under the playoff line in the East, 1 point behind 8th place in Washington.
Back to Braden for college baseball news.
College baseball, and we got a college basketball update as well.
All right.
Scott Drew turns down Kentucky to remain at Baylor. Scott Drew has decided to stay at Baylor, turning down interest from Kentucky after emerging as the school's top target to replace John Calipari. Drew, who won the national title at Baylor in 2021, has a close relationship with Kentucky athletic director Mitch Barnhart, but ultimately decided to stay in Waco, Texas, where he has coached for 21 years and has gone 446 and 244. He confirmed his plan to remain the Bears coach in a statement on Thursday. We truly believe God has called my family and I to continue our work here at Baylor, surrounded by the best people and community anyone could be blessed to have, Drew said. We are grateful for the support of Mack Rhodes, President Linda Livingstone, and the entire Baylor family, and we look forward to working together to bring more championships to Waco. The Drew family has established deep roots in Central Texas, which loomed large in the decision to stay. Drew also listened to Louisville in its search last month before ultimately passing on that opportunity. Kentucky and Louisville fans on Twitter in shambles that a guy decided to stay at Baylor instead of go to their, quote, prestigious basketball schools. That's it for college basketball. College baseball. Not a good week if you're a UC San Diego Triton. Sorry, Craig.
What?
The Aztecs, who have struggled all year, beats the Tritons last night 18-8 in La Jolla, California.
Something went wrong.
That must have been a, you know what, UCSD was saving themselves for the weekend.
Algorithmy thing
The
happened.
algorithmy
That's
things. You know
right.
what? Baseball is stupid and nobody should watch.
That's exactly right,
Prime-
especially that game.
Prime example last night as the now 10-22 Aztecs
Oy
defeated
vey.
the now 21-10 UC San Diego Tritons. It gets better for both teams. Obviously, we go into conference play again over the weekend. San Diego State will be taking on UNLV at Tony Gwynn Stadium. That should be a good series. UNLV is really good this season. As for the Tritons, they will be hosting the number one team in the Big West, the UC Irvine Anteaters, this weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Irvine's ranked top 15 in the country. And again, number one team in the Big West Conference. Should be a fun series at Triton Ballpark. See, it's starting to make a lot more sense now, Craig.
It is.
Why burn pitching on a Wednesday against San Diego State when you got the Anteaters coming to town?
Yeah. Zot. Go get the Zots.
Rip them.
I like what you're thinking.
Rip them. USD will be at Portland. It's a battle of number 1 and number 2 in the West Coast Conference. Portland's off to a 6-0 start in the West Coast Conference. San Diego's off to a 4-2 start. Had a nice midweek against UC San Diego on Tuesday. They won 7-1, but will be a really big series in determining the West Coast Conference regular season champion this weekend in Oregon for the Toreros. So good luck to Brock and the boys.
Yes.
That'll do it for me.
All right, let's wrap things up by getting you up to date on the Masters. The first major of the 2024 season is underway with first round action. It was slightly delayed due to weather. And when I can tell you it's an international scoreboard right now, oh man, do I mean it? It is Australia's Ryan Fox that is currently in the lead at 11 under par. Pardon me, 5 under par through 11 holes. Fox off to a hot start. Bryson DeChambeau just birdied 12, and the live golfer, Bryson DeChambeau, is in second place at 4 under. Then it's Byung-Hun An from South Korea at 3 under. Canada's Corey Connors at 2 under. And a giant pack of golfers at 1 under, including South Africa's Eric van Rooyen. But in the 1 under group is where you start to find the tournament favorites. Phil Mickelson, who was great here last year, is at 1 under. Will Zalatoris, Matt Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler just got a birdie on 5 to go to 2 under. Wyndham Clark is at 1 under. Victor Hovland is at 1 under. Cam Smith, Cam Davis. These are where you're starting to see the cream of the crop. Lucas Glover is at even par. John Rahm is at even par. Tony Finau is at even par. JT, Justin Thomas, Mike Weir, a former winner, the Canadian great, is at even par. And that's getting you down the scoreboard a little bit as some of the top pairings yet to tee off as well. And with that, we bring an end to today's 12 o'clock Sports Fix. All the news you needed to know for April 11th, 2024. But when we come back, let's dive into what's going on with Shohei Otani.
Yeah.
Because
There's a lot.
there's a lot.
There's a lot.
I mean,
And
there's a lot.
There's still stuff coming out. I mean, Passon tweeted something else out like 4 minutes ago. So
Braden's been keeping his finger on it. We're going to get all of the latest news, and then we're going to digest it right after this break. Don't go anywhere. Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:20. Welcome back, Danny and Elsten. Thanks for being here.
Show over already?
Right. It's
Just ask us
time
anything.
to ask us anything. 833-288. No, it's not.
Oh, wait, I
it's
looked at the clock.
later.
Oh, I looked at the clock.
Just
It's
a
only
little bit
12:19.
later. Just a little bit later. Let's dig in. During the course of the show, we have seen continuous reporting. Things have been coming out more and more in terms of the feds nearing the end of an investigation into the former translator for Shohei Otani, Otani-Mizuhara, who took a much bigger role than just being his translator. He was essentially his personal servant, his go-between, apparently, for almost all important aspects of his life, to the level of which that he could not only manipulate Shohei Otani's financial accounts, but also seem to ward off any information going to Shohei Otani, while he wound up stealing what I believe now is being listed as $16 million from Shohei Otani over time, paying off a bookie the voluminous gambling losses that Ippei was accruing year over year. Braden, you've been going through some of the tweets and the reports. What's the best picture we can paint right here?
Well, it's kind of all over the place right now. It's just so many different things that have populated. There's a lot of people posting some excerpts from an article from Alden Gonzalez on the story on ESPN.com, as well as Paula Levine. Those are the two that are covering it for ESPN. One that Jeff Passan put out, and just kind of to delve into some of the, I guess, details that have answered a lot of questions that people had of like, well, how does Otani not know? And how is this, and this? There's a couple of things that we've seen. Investigators relied on recorded phone calls from the bank in which Mizuhara falsely identified himself as Otani to trick and deceive bank employees into authorizing the transfers. That is just one excerpt from this article, which means he was pretending to be Otani in a couple of these situations as well. But the full report from Alden Gonzalez's first tweet he put out was, as you mentioned, it was discovered he transferred more than $16 million from Otani's bank account to an alleged illegal sports book, federal authorities announced in LA court. U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada had this to say: The bets do not appear to have been made on the sport of baseball. They were placed between 2021 and 2024. Ippei-Mizuhara, according to Estrada, set up the bank account for Shohei Otani and didn't have access to Otani's reps or it didn't have access to Otani's reps and financial advisors. One of the other posts that happened, or one of the reports coming out, I think it was from Bill Shaken, all coming from the report from the government's complaint against Ippei, was talking about how Otani's agent, is what it's listed as, asked about the bank account a couple of times, in which Mizuhara said it is a private bank account that only Otani has access to, or really only Otani and Ippei can look at. So that's how, that story of how did nobody else in the financial community understand that worked for Otani not know that $16 million were missing. Here is what Jeff Passan said. Also, two important elements from the complaint against Ippei-Mizuhara: the size of his bets and the debt he allegedly incurred were massive. He lost bets of nearly $183 million, winning bets of more than $142 million, with $40.7 million in losses. There were no bets on baseball. And the last thing really that I can kind of lay out to you with more, trending topics, and we can dive more into it, just to kind of paint a picture here. On or about March 20th, 2024, Ippei messaged bookmaker number one stating, "Have you seen the reports?" Bookmaker number one, as listed in this report, responded,
Right.
"Yes, that's all BS. Obviously," that's the full word. "Obviously, you didn't steal from him. I understand it's a cover job. I totally get it." Mizuhara then responded to Bookmaker one, "Technically, I did steal from him. It's all over for me." That was a text message received on March 20th, 2024, okay, around the time that this obviously was getting reported on while the Padres and the Dodgers were in Korea. So just to kind of recap what's really going on here, it sounds like obviously Ippei's got a very big gambling problem, and he set up a bank account in Otani's name, pretended to be Otani, and then would wire transfer money from Otani's account to the bookie in this particular case to keep making his bets. There was another text, I think back in November, in which he was saying, I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
LOL, and the bookmaker to the bookmaker, but then asked for a bigger, allotment to try to bet again, and then said, I'm good for it in order to pay this off. So that's kind of the overall spark notes, cliff notes of kind of the situation. And there's more and more information being dissected out of this government file, if you will, as the day is going on. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very good for Ippei-Mizuhara.
$40 million in gambling losses between December 2021 and January of this year. $40 million. By the way, $142 million of winning bets, $182 million of losing bets along the way. Your reaction to all of this, Annie?
I mean, I think that it's another reason why we don't always, we shouldn't always jump to conclusions at the beginning of something. It's surprising. The amounts are surprising, but the way it was done, the manner in which it was done, it's obviously a little shocking. It's very rare that you see this kind of thing happen, but it's not, I think, totally unheard of in terms of how guys treat their translators, how people who are addicts act. I mean, this is ultimately, I guess you could look at Mizuhara and say maybe he is just a sociopathic mastermind, and he is, that's how he did all this. But if you read a lot of these reports that are coming out, how he's hitting up the bookmaker, hey, can you bump me one more time? This will be it. You'll never have to do it again. And then a month later here, whatever it is, he's asking, hey, last time, this is going to be the last time. Can you bump me one more time? And then another time, hey, this, I promise you, this is going to be the last time. You won't have to do it again. This is going to be it. If I don't do well, this is going to be it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what addiction looks like. Yeah. And it is incomprehensible for any of us to imagine losing millions and millions and millions of dollars. But if you know anyone who's been an addict, whether gambling, drugs, alcohol, whatever, this is what it looks like. And you can easily lose that kind of money. And the further in you get, the more lies you start telling, the deeper you dig that hole, it becomes very difficult to get out of. It stands out to me that he turned off, supposedly turned off notifications to Otani. He, like Braden mentioned, he called the bank pretending to be Otani. I suppose there could be some, like I said, some criminal mastermind going on that even the feds can't catch, that this is all one humongous cover up. But to me, it just sounds like a guy that just went further and further and further into the dark, dark hole of addiction.
One little detail that stands out to me is that when Otani's agent is repeatedly asking Ippei, what's going on with this account? And Ippei's like, Shohei doesn't want to talk about it. That from the agent standpoint, he then accepted that premise.
Remember, they work for the player. There's no, at the end of the day, the player calls the shots. If he thinks that everything's fine or whatever, they don't want to lose these guys as their clients. They're going to push, but only how far, it's not their job to babysit guys, or, I mean, those days are, I think you might have some agents out there that are just good people, and not that his agent isn't a good person, but that really want to sink into all that. But most of them are just doing their jobs, and maybe they'll do a little bit more. They'll care a little bit more, but Shohei Otani is the boss of everyone underneath him at the end of the day.
Unless it was actually Ippei, because he was the one that was making all the decisions.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And this is on Shohei too, because from what we've read about Dylan Hernandez on Shohei, he wants to play baseball. Hey, let me play baseball. I don't want to do anything else. Handle everything for me. I just want to play baseball. Okay, well, that comes with some, consequences of its own.
This story began, I think it really bears repeating, with one story being told and 12 hours later, a diametrically opposed story being told. The first was that that Shohei was paying off Ippei's debts. And that interview with an ESPN reporter was facilitated by Shohei Ohtani's agent, who was in the room for the interview. It was the next day after Ippei spoke to the team and then spoke to Shohei that everything reversed, and it was, he stole the money. It was completely a theft. When you have something like that in the public domain and there's not further information, nature abhors a vacuum. I think it was 100% completely understandable for anybody to look at this story and say it's weird. It doesn't smell right. Something's off. Something's wrong. When Shohei came out on March 25th, when they got back from Korea, when he came out with his public statement, when we talked about it that day, I said that polarizes the outcomes. Now, he has made it explicit. It's either he was completely duped and was a victim and, had millions of dollars stolen from him. He was a rube, as Woodsy was saying, or he's doubling down on an incredible lie that now is going to take layers and layers and layers. And if you're on that side of it and you want to say, well, now Ippei's the fall guy, he's going to get paid down the road, blah, 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 blah. You can write the fiction in your mind. Like, there's no way that we can go, no, you're wrong. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But what I would say is that everything that just happened today lines up 100% with what Shohei said that day at that time. He polarized the results because he knew that he was a victim that day.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did not go off without a hitch. And I think that there could have been some plausible understanding of, like, this guy was helping out his friend. He paid off his debts. He didn't understand what he was getting himself into in a certain sense, or he didn't take the time to understand what he was getting himself into. The feds are going to fine. I mean, in this day and age, it is very difficult to not have any digital trace of certain things. They can go, you're talking to banks, you're talking to institutions, you're looking at text messages, you're going into forensics of deleted text messages, deleted pictures, screenshots from all angles. And you have people that are going to be willing to give up things in order to save themselves a little bit and get a better deal. So if there is indeed more that there is to find, which we're not seeing that right now, it's going to get found. Like, or if this is just one big cover up, and Mizuhara is taking the fall for his friend, I have a hard time thinking that that's not going to be figured out, and so and they're going to come to some reasonable conclusion. And I just think it's funny. People think we're carrying MLB's water. Like, we don't give a crap. Right. I truly am speaking from someone who has seen a lot of addiction in my day. And I really also have seen a lot of players in my day. Nothing surprises me anymore. It's very hard for people to believe. And I understand that this stuff goes on. It goes on all the time, not to this level, not to this degree, but it goes on. And it is not the job of the agent to babysit them. It is their job to advise them. They do not go further than that. They cannot handcuff these guys and say, this is what you do. They advise them. They tell them the best strategy to make a intelligent decision. And that is it.
Well, I do believe that if it was me in that position, that my agent would be fired, my financial advisors would be fired. Basically, everyone on my protective team would be fired because $16 million was stolen from me under my nose. And it wasn't like one-time bank heist, $16 million stolen and nobody noticed. It was a series of transactions over and over again. And Ippei protected the account. No one's looking at the balances overall of everything. That money came from somewhere, right? The money was coming from somewhere. So I would be firing everybody if I was Shohei. And by the way, he could have already done a lot of that, and none of the news came out because they're being respectful. It's a different culture. There could be like, no, in America, we'd be like, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, to make sure that everyone knew that we were doing everything that we should do to keep the narrative running. It doesn't have to be that way for Shohei Ohtani. So I understand but I would get rid of everybody.
Yeah, and there are things that we don't know. I'm sure as much information that's going to come out here publicly, there's going to still be things that we don't know and that the feds aren't going to reveal. And I agree with you. There's negligence on Shohei's part for sure. There is hey, you've got to take responsibility for your own life. You've got to take responsibility for what you're going through. Yes, it's a difficult transition to come from Japan to the United States. You are dependent on certain people, but let this be a learning lesson also for him. If this is indeed true that he just, 16 million just under his nose, he had no idea, then that is a huge learning lesson for him as well, that he also has to take more responsibility for his life. And also, I think that for people who think that MLB is like paying off the feds to cover this up, like, let's get real.
That's ridiculous.
This is not happening. Please stop.
You don't think that a
happening.
Fed would want to make his career by breaking the biggest story of all time and making like the single biggest arrest of all time?
That would come out too. That would be exposed at some point, and the feds would look like complete idiots. So,
right.
How about this phone message that Bookmaker One messaged to Mizuhara? Hey, Ippy, it's 2:00 on Friday. I don't know why you're not returning my calls. I'm here in Newport Beach, and I see victim A, which is Shohei, walking his dog. I'm just going to go up and talk to him and ask how I can get in touch with you since you're not responding. Please call me back immediately. November 17th, 2023.
Who was that?
That was Boyer, the bookmaker, leaving
did
a voicemail.
Ippei immediately call that? Hey, hang on.
That's when Ippei wasn't returning bookmakers' calls.
He saw
I think
Otani in
Ippei
Newport.
told the bookmaker that Otani. Now, he might have told him that, like, I'm betting for Otani.
Of course he did.
Told him.
Of course he did.
And
that's the only way he probably got the
right,
the allowance he got.
the money.
100%. Because that's what Boyer is saying in that text message back.
Yeah.
In the first, which again was dated March 20th. That's 5 days before the Ippei announcement happened. So yeah. Oh, hey, you seeing the reports? But it's 5 days before they had the entire statement that was made. So yeah, like, whoa, hang on. Seems like a big deal to me. But he says, yeah, I know that it's all. I know that this is a cover. That's what the bookie says, right? He says, like, I know this is a cover. And then he goes, no, I actually did steal from him. So he said, technically, I did steal from him.
I mean, I'm surprised, honestly. I guess I am a little surprised to read that. In my opinion, you would think like that would be a phone call and not a text or something, because you don't want that in writing. You don't want to implicate yourself. So I understand that looks weird.
Oh, if you want to go conspiracy side, you go, oh yeah, I texted on purpose because.
Yeah, I want the feds to find that so that they don't implicate Shohei. But I just still believe that, like, in this day and age, like that might have been able to be a ruse 20 or 30 or 50 years ago. But in this day and age, there's just going to be too many digital,
people are still
footprints.
diving through this complaint. The criminal complaint by telephone or other reliable electronic means filed by the government against Mizuhara is 37 pages long. It is posted online. If anybody would like to go read it, it is some fascinating stuff. And that's why we're getting so many just random excerpts from it as they come out, because people are reading through this criminal complaint against Mizuhara.
Yeah.
I mean, also, this was his best friend. This was his dude. Like, and look, I get it. Shohei Otani lost a lot of money and is a victim per se, but like, he's still responsible for his life. He's responsible for his money.
He is 100% responsible for his money. And this it's at least a sign of incredible personal neglect.
It's embarrassing.
Horribly.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they've tracked, I just pulled up that document. They've tracked, like, it says like number 6 on this list or whatever it says. The transfers from the 5848 bank account were made from devices and IP addresses associated with Ippei Mizuhara, an individual who was until recently employed as Victim A's translator and de facto manager. Text messages on Mizuhara's mobile phone show that in September of 2021, Mizuhara began gambling with Bookmaker One's illegal sportsbook and began losing substantial sums of money in late 2021. Bank A records show that during the same time period, the contact information on 5848 bank account was changed to link the 5848 account to Mizuhara's phone number and to an anonymous email account, which is connected to Mizuhara based on data found on Mizuhara's mobile phone.
So he created an entire avenue to funnel money from Shohei to a bookmaker, all controlled by him, so that all the notifications come to him, and then he just completely avoids telling Shohei. And I guess Shohei in this version, like, never checks his bank statements, which,
There's a lot of foolishness in this as well from
Yeah.
multiple entities. And I understand where Annie's coming from. They're not babysitters, but at the same time, for most of the handlers of Shohei Ohtani to just like listen to Ippei go like, oh, it's private, don't look into it, like nothing to see here. And they're like, all right, cool. And then just move on with their lives is an interesting story nonetheless. There is probably a lot of lying in here, but I will say it's probably not lying in the sense of this is all Shohei Ohtani's gambling and it's pinned on Mizuhara. But I'm sure there are some I'm sure there's some people that know more about this than they're making to believe.
And that are also probably saving face if they can. In some
Right. Oh,
respects,
100%. They're like, oh yeah, I had no idea. I need to be better. I need to be smarter. But when I'm making $40 million a year in endorsements, yeah, what's 16? I mean, I just lost 16. Didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of dripped out, right? Like it wasn't all at once. It sort of dripped out.
Yeah, it's not like
500K at a time.
Yeah.
Slowly.
And so sometimes I don't know.
Maybe
Again,
it's fees.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But no one can. No one can imagine, because the number of people who could actually live in a universe where $16 million left your personal finances and you didn't even notice.
Like you would think at some point you would see the totals at least. But when you're that wealthy, maybe, and you have, I don't know, who knows? Like maybe money is constantly fluctuating because of, I don't know.
You have to be a child. I mean, I would expect Bezos to notice $16 million going missing. He's a trillionaire. I would expect him to notice that. I would expect Bill Gates to notice if $16 million went missing. Shohei Ohtani doesn't make anywhere near the money of those types of zillionaires.
Well, how's the money getting into this account if Ippei made the account, even though he's pretending
Right, it's
to be
got to
Shohei?
come from somewhere.
So, yeah, it's coming from somewhere. It's not like just because he makes an account in Shohei's name doesn't mean Shohei's paychecks are showing up in that account unless he flipped them during some type of. I'm sure. I mean,
He was calling the big pretending to be Shohei.
Right,
so.
but like, how is he getting? But he started this account himself, so obviously he would know all the information on it. How does he get the money from Shohei into this account that he started, unless he was just stealing random checks from him time to time?
Right.
I think he had all his bank info. I think he had all that information.
Everybody's bank info. But then wouldn't the other financial people that knew about the other accounts start seeing money disappearing from their accounts?
That's what I was saying.
Into
Got
the Mizuhara account,
right?
That nobody had access to. I mean, how does the $16 million get into the bank account that Ippei made that started at $500,000? It doesn't.
So maybe
Which I'm sure it could be in this
pure speculation.
Piece of paper
the
here.
financial advisor contacts the agent. $500,000 just left Shohei's checking account to go into this private account. There was a transfer, because it would be a transfer. It'd be from a Shohei account to a Shohei account.
Like, is the agent's not overseeing his bank
Well,
account?
the reason I say that is because in the complaint, it says that the agent is asking Ippei about the account.
Got it. Okay.
So the agent therefore knows about the account.
Something tipped him off to ask about it.
Right. So somebody told him. So I'm just kind of.
No, so you must be right. Okay.
I'm just
All right.
playing it
Yeah.
through. Hi, Nez, this is, so and so from the bank, and did you know there was a $500,000 transfer to this private account? Run to Ippei. What's going on with this private account? Hey, Shohei says don't ask about it. This is cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. And then Nez is like, oh, maybe that's his gambling account in his mind. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. This is my cash cow. And so in that sense, the financial person did their job. They made the report. Now, shouldn't they have a fiduciary responsibility to Shohei himself, not to go-betweens? But it's kind of a unique situation in that Shohei is an international star who has go-betweens in the United States of America.
I mean, when you think about like abused women or abused men or whatever, and you have someone who is your controller, and I know I'm like really narrowing this down into something that is, really hard. Probably I shouldn't compare, but like you depend on that person. That person is your lifeline. That person is like who handles everything for you. And that person is pulling all the strings. And so it is really difficult to believe. Like, I agree with you guys. There had to have been other people that know how to translate, that can talk, that can speak Japanese and also can speak English, and could have gone to Shohei and said, hey, I'm a little suspect about Ipe here. Do you know what's going on?
This
But
stuff was getting red flagged in the banks because it says in the account, it says on or about February 1st, 2022, Mizuhara told bookmaker 2 the wire should be there by the end of tomorrow. And then he goes on to say on February 4th, the last transaction got canceled as well. I went to the teller and everything should be sorted out. I made another transfer for $300,000 today since I lost the other $100,000 already. And later that day confirmed wire went through. It goes on. There's multiple wires transfers that Mizuhara tries to make that gets canceled by the bank or, doesn't make it through and he has to redo it or go to the bank to be able to convince them to send the money. So it's not like it wasn't getting unnoticed by other
Right.
people here.
it's just that Mizuhara was able to
Yeah.
cover it up.
It says,
Yeah.
I sent out 500
You know?
this is from a quote from Mizuhara's message to the bookmaker on May 16th, 2023. I sent out 500 just now. I tried 1,000, but it won't let me for some reason. I will send another 500 tomorrow or the day after. I mean, obviously things are getting red flagged here on his transactions that he is making,
Right.
because they're getting canceled.
But
I mean,
then he's also, we don't know that Ipe isn't. I mean, if he's making the notifications unknown to Shohei, is he going in and deleting them from his email? Is he going
well,
in
if he
and,
runs if he runs the account, Shohei would have
Right.
no idea about it anyway. But
he wouldn't see those.
But our big question before the story came out was, how did the banks not know? And people were like, well, banks don't red flag everything. Well, they're obviously flagging a bunch of stuff right now
Mhm.
in this piece. He couldn't he was having issues wire transferring money to other people because of
Yeah.
probably all the wire transfers he was sending out, and it wasn't making sense for the bank.
Guys, we've murdered the clock.
We did.
So what we need to do is take a break here. We'll come back and put a couple more buttons on this. I'll give you a Masters update, and we'll push Fast Money to 1:00. So
Good.
we'll play Fast Money at 1 because we're going to come back with a short segment next. Annie and Elsten still talking Shohei on the other side of the break on the Fan. All right, just a couple more minutes in the top of the hour. When we get to the top of the hour break, we'll be looking for a contestant to play Fast Money today. Silly Games pushed back because we kind of went jumbo-sized on the Shohei Otani revelations regarding, the criminal complaint filed against Ipe Mizuhara. He could be sentenced up to 30 years in jail if this count of bank fraud was found to be guilty. I got to just say, because we have a very brief period of time, my creative mind was kind of going blink, blink, blink back here because according to this criminal complaint, Ipe Mizuhara lost over $160 million in 3 years of losing bets, but he also won $120 million in winning bets over 3 years. So calling Justice Parman, calling Rafi Cantor, any of my playwrights out there, any of my screenplay writers, I'm thinking of an independent film called Ipe's Big Day. Just one day hanging out with Ipe Mizuhara when every bet wins, when he wins $25 million, like the biggest day of Ipe's life, but it's got all of the pathos of knowing what's to come, and like Shohei is always talked about but never appears in the film. I just think it's going to win an Oscar in about 3 or 4 years.
There'd be some kind of documentary. And I will say, like, Ipe had way too much time and way too much money at his disposal. Way too much, or that I guess he could allegedly get into, right? But translators essentially have they're just kind of rolling around with the dude. I mean, you're doing a little here and there, but your days aren't super stacked. All right. So I don't know.
This document just keeps
wild.
getting juicier and juicier by the second.
Yeah, each page.
It's unreal. Like on May 20th, 2023, Bookmaker One messaged Mizuhara. I know you've been on a bad run. I don't mind bumping you. I just want to verify that you can send at least $2 million on June 1st.
Holy cow.
Because he owed money.
Wow.
This is him on June 22nd. I got my ass kicked again. LOL. Any chance I can get one last bump? This will be my last one for a while if I lose it. Going back to what Annie was reading earlier about all these, this is my last time situation. Bookmaker One responded the same day. Okay, bud. I just want to be able to communicate with my partner so he knows expectations. If I can assure him that minimum 500 will be sent every week, I can do the bump or to whatever you want. It's just imperative that the 500 is sent every week. As you can imagine, the figures are very high and just don't want to not be able to deliver what I tell him. FYI, I have already paid out of my pocket to him half of the balance that is on the account. So whatever is lost every week, I have to give him half of the balance. That's why I'm asking these direct, important questions.
This is the type of thing that in a different place, you're getting pulled to a building in the back, going down to a basement, getting put in a chair,
You're getting whacked.
getting the S beat out of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're dead. You're being whacked. We've seen The Godfather. We've seen Goodfellas.
You walk in, think it's a nice
crazy.
lunch, and you find
Donnie
plastic on the
Brasco.
floor.
Yeah. Joe Pesci walking through.
Thought he's going to be a made man. All right,
Shohei
bang.
walking his dog.
We're playing Fast Money, not Ipe style. We're playing Fast Money on the radio when we come back. Silly Games on Annie and Elsten. All right, back for hour number 4 of the program. Welcome back to it. Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang is here with you on San Diego's #1 sports station. We are 97.3 The Fan, alongside Annie Heilbrunn and Braden Soprenet. Craig Elsten here with you. And while we normally play silly games every day at 12:45, we just got really buried under the avalanche of Shohei Ippei news and criminal complaints and crazy allegations.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is.
We're not done with this. This will end up resurfacing the more that we learn.
We are not even close
Mhm.
to done with this.
Most popular bet in America right now, Nick Castellanos home run. I'm not even kidding. People are just immediately, that's like that meme with
Right.
anything that bad
Yes.
happens.
Yeah.
is the
Right.
Nick Castellanos
Nick
home run.
Castellanos will go deep.
People have bet a ton of money on him today to hit a home run,
That's really funny.
just to make it full circle. I think it's plus 450 today, by the way. So
Hmm.
he hasn't hit a home run in 12 games.
Well, now's the time.
Now's the time.
Where's Tom Brenneman? Get him somewhere near a
That
microphone.
time is now.
Yeah, exactly.
Nick Castellanos, the most bet home run prop today. He has not homered through 12 games this season. Looking for his first one.
And there's a high fly ball to left field.
Deep to left field.
Well, people had that for a lot of they had it for like OJ Simpson passing away. They had there's a lot of big sports news today.
We haven't even talked-
We didn't get
we
to
didn't
that.
talk-
We're
yeah.
getting to it next segment. We're going to talk OJ next segment. But right now, it's time to try and qualify somebody for our end of the month grand prize drawing, a 2-night stay at Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and 2 tickets to Kool and the Gang. It's time to play silly games. And today we are playing. All right, here we go. It's the bonus round from the famous game show Family Feud. It's Fast Money. 5 questions, 60 seconds, and you get a chance. Hang on, Braden's finding something in his backpack.
Ready to go.
Yeah, oh, it's just music's so loud. There we go. There we go.
You okay there?
Well,
You all right?
I didn't want to shout over the Family Feud
We
thing.
just let people enjoy it for a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Come
a few
on.
moments.
You gotta
Just
be a little
chill.
bit. You're a PA guy.
Yeah,
Come on, get over the music.
you know.
Yeah, you gotta use your. What, are you saving your voice for the soccer's coming up?
Yeah, Sure.
Yeah, I am.
sure, absolutely.
Guy's got to go to the Irvine UCSD baseball series this week. He's got to save his cheering.
Yeah, exactly. Trenton's Rising. Let's go.
That's right.
Let's see who's today's contestant for Fast Money. Who do we have, Braden?
Joe in San Diego. Joe, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great,
Hey,
Joe.
Joe.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother.
Just finished up season 2 of Tokyo Vice.
All right. How'd you like it?
So it was great.
Amazing. I'll be talking about Ripley on Friday. By the way, Media Melanie, if you're listening, dibs on Ripley. Just telling you.
Got her.
Ladies first.
Dibs.
Okay.
He called dibs.
I called
fine.
dibs.
That's
You-
the rule of the
You have
dibs.
the power to call dibs. She doesn't.
You could have called dibs.
She could have
Okay.
tweeted dibs.
Fine.
She could have totally tweeted me and said dibs.
Fine.
I'm saying dibs.
Okay.
Dibs.
He said dibs first.
All right. Joe, do you know how Fast Money's played? Sorry for the digression. Do you
Yeah.
know? Okay, great.
Joe was like, let's get this going.
Yeah, come on. For everybody else in the audience, here's what's about to happen. Joe is first going to make a choice. He's either going to go against myself or against the queen of Fast Money, Annie Heilbrunn, who set the all-time Fast Money record the last time that we played the game. Whoever you pick is going to leave the studio. Braden will then give you 5 questions over 60 seconds. Your goal is to get the most popular answer. This was a survey taken of a previous studio audience here at Annie and Elsten. So try and think of the most popular answer. Then whoever you are taking on will return. They cannot repeat your answers. And whoever wins, wins. And if you win, you're in the grand prize drawing. All right, Joe, who do you want to play?
I want the rematch with you, Craig.
Ooh.
You did
All right.
great last time.
All right. I'm
Let's go.
out of here.
All right, look for Craig to leave. Then we got dueling Annies. We'll fix the camera for the YouTube people. All right, Joe, you got 1 minute to answer 5 questions. If you need to pass, you can say pass, and we can move on if we got time at the end to answer it. We'll start with question number 1. Fill in the blank. Raging blank.
Cajun.
I like that. Raging Cajuns. Name something that shakes, rattles, and rolls.
Baby rattle.
Name an animal starting with the letter C that you would never want to eat.
Cheetah.
Not to be confused with Cheetos. Other than feet, name something that runs.
Time.
It's good.
Name something a person might keep in a cellar.
Wine.
Wine.
Mm-hmm.
Good answer. And that's it for Joe with 15 seconds to spare.
Craig's coming back in.
Craig Elsten, come on down.
The price is right.
It's a different game.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah, that was Price's Right. If I had a puff print T-shirt that said, Drew Carey, I love you. I should get one that says Braden.
Yeah, sure.
I waited 6 months to be
That's
here,
right.
Braden.
Pick me. He's out in the hall. All right. 1 minute on the clock there, Craig.
Okay, I'm ready.
Fill in the blank. Raging blank.
Bull.
Good answer. Name something that shakes, rattles, and rolls.
Shakes, rattles, and rolls. Castanets. Terrible answer.
What did you say?
What?
You
I don't even know what that is.
The castanets. It's not going to be an answer.
Like maracas?
Yeah, maracas. That's it. Castanets are the finger. The finger.
Oh, the finger version.
Yeah.
Name an animal starting with the letter C that you would never want to eat.
An animal starting with the letter C that I would never want to eat.
Correct.
Most of them, I'm sure. Well, you know what? Crustacean. I'm not big on shrimp.
Crustacean. I know an ant's coming on that.
Yeah, me too.
It's fine.
Other than feet, name something that runs.
Other than feet, water runs.
Oh, that's a good one.
Water runs deep. Name something a person might keep in a cellar.
Wine.
Try again.
Baseball cards. Stupid answer.
Excuse me?
Good answer. Good answer is what the fans would say.
Yeah.
The family, I'm like, you're just humoring me. That wasn't a good answer.
Yeah, you
Like,
know who would
keep
not
going,
do that?
keep
It's
trying.
the current host of Family Feud, Steve Harvey, would look at you like,
Yeah.
what?
What?
I mean, I guess. Never
All right.
mind. I already missed it.
Annie, you have a calculator ready to conduct the
God.
score here?
I
Whoa,
think Joe's
whoa.
in good shape based on how crappily my answers came
Yeah,
out.
Joe's in pretty good shape.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, you guys mail it in on a Thursday.
No, a couple of them were good.
The first one was good, and you're going to have a lead on the first one probably. Fill
All
in the
right.
blank. Raging blank. Joe said Cajun. The Raging Cajuns.
all
I
right.
like it. Yeah, let's clap it up. Yeah, all right. Yeah, good answer. Show me Raging Cajuns.
Yeah.
Incorrect. Nobody thought that. Craig said bull. Number one answer, 74 points.
Look at that,
Wow.
Joe.
Ah, man.
Put that inside your crustacean, huh?
74-0.
74.
It's a good lead.
Well, don't blow the lead,
It's a good
Craig.
lead.
Name something that shakes, rattles, and rolls. Joe said a baby rattle.
That makes sense.
Correct. Number two answer, 29. It's 74-29.
Okay.
Craig said maracas.
Sure. I mean,
Incorrect.
they do shake.
They do. They do rattle.
They do rattle. I mean, if you threw them on the ground, they'd roll.
They'd probably roll.
Depending on
but-
how you aimed it.
Other Americans disagree with you on that one.
Fair enough.
Name an animal starting with the letter C that you'd never want to eat.
I would have said cat.
That's a good.
That
one.
would have been the number one answer.
That's a good one.
Joe said a cheetah.
Yeah, couldn't catch him. Don't want to eat him.
That's 3 points for Joe.
3.
Wow, he's got 32 coming back. Chester Cheetah over there. Craig. Crustacean.
Crustacean. What? None of you dislike shrimp?
Unbelievable.
Triple.
Unbelievable. Number one answer was Annie's answer of cat.
Yeah, okay.
64.
That's why you don't go against Annie in Fast Money.
Followed by a camel, a cougar.
Camel.
4 people don't like beef. They said a cow.
What?
Oh, wow.
PETA.
Vegetarians.
And then a coyote.
Coyote was good. That's a good answer.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
eat a coyote.
Yeah, gamey. So I'm still ahead, but
74 to 32.
74-32.
Okay, creeping closer, ever closer, Joe, ever closer. What's
Other than
next?
feet, name something that runs. Joe said time.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
time's running out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wait on. They have
Okay.
clock. I'll give him clock.
Yeah,
Okay.
give me clock.
3
Give me clock.
points.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
only 3.
Okay, 77.
So no, he's got 35.
35.
Oh, sorry.
You have 74.
Got it.
Craig said water.
That's a good one.
Number one answer. 37 points.
Oh my
Ah,
goodness.
he's got me.
That might be
Again?
it. That might be it.
One
But who
good
knows?
answer on this
Two
game.
good answers.
What's
Two good
our
answers.
total
Break
right
it
now,
apart.
Annie?
74 plus 37,
Is 111.
and then Joe's got 35.
111 to
All you
35.
got to do is just basically match everyone, and I get nothing. I'm definitely getting nothing. So
Name something a person might keep in a cellar. Joe said wine.
number
Good
one
answer. Good
Gotta
answer.
Wine is correct. It is also the number one answer.
be. And how much is it?
What was it? 111 to
35.
35?
What's the deficit?
I think it was at 76.
Yeah,
No,
76.
don't
He
do
needs
that.
77 here.
He needs 77.
Okay.
54. Craig will win the contest.
Oh, Joe, good job.
Congratulations to Craig.
Well, that one was close. I knew I put some big zeros up there. So, listen, there's not a game that I've ever played in my life that I didn't want to win.
Okay. This game in particular, one good answer
One good
Yeah.
answer.
can completely just put you too far ahead. for
Craig
anyone to
put up
catch.
3 zeros today and won.
Yeah. He took the L, but
One-
he took the W.
One
You know what
big
I'm saying?
inning. Craig Elsten and the San Diego Padres
it.
offense.
That's
One
it.
big inning. They put up 7 runs in one
I
inning
got a
and got the
Profar
job
grand
done.
slam.
Yeah.
Got a Profar triple.
Anthony Sandoval says Cheetah is a cat.
Well, I mean,
mean-
and a cougar's a cat too.
Sure.
Technically.
Joe, you're going to give me one of these days. You did a lot better
Call back,
today. Give us another shot another time. Thank you, Joe.
Let's go through the answers here. Fill in the blank. Raging blank. I'm glad this wasn't on Match Game. Bull was the number one answer. Waters was number 2. Fire was 3. Hormones was
Yes,
Oh
4.
my
for sure.
God.
River and Rapids was
Nice.
your answer
Hormones was number 1 among all respondents, 13 to 19.
for Match Game. Name something that shakes, rattles, and rolls. Number 1 answer was an old car.
Oh,
31.
okay. All right. Okay.
Number 2 is a rattle/toy, 29 points. A rattlesnake.
See, I don't
doesn't
think it
really
really
roll,
shakes
though.
or rolls
Right.
that much.
He rattles.
Like slithers.
Just says rattle.
Music/singers.
Okay. That would have been a good
Well,
answer.
outside the
Music.
box.
Yeah. Music shakes, rattles, and rolls. Yeah.
Dancing body/booty.
All right.
My
dancing
booty shakes, rattles, and rolls.
That's right.
Yeah, you know it.
And dice.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Name an animal starting with the letter C that you would never want to eat. We already went through this. Cat, camel, cougar, cow, cheetah, coyote. 4 people don't like beef. That's fine. They're probably vegetarian. Other than feet, name something that runs. Number 1 answer was water/toilets. Number 2 is engine/car.
That's good.
Number 3 was refrigerator. Is your refrigerator running? Well, yeah, it is. Well, you better go catch
Better go
it.
get it.
Click. Ah, those damn kids. Nose, pantyhose, and clock. The
Okay,
fact that
yeah.
pantyhose had more votes than time is ridiculous.
Right.
8 people said
Right.
that.
Maybe they interviewed a lot of women.
Well, obviously we had, what was it, last time?
Hormones and
We had a lot of women answers on that one.
That's true.
Name something a person might keep in a cellar. Number 1 was wine, 54 points. It was a good one by Joe. Canned goods/food.
Hmm.
We have 4 serial killers that answered. They said
Wow.
dead bodies.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Solid. Jeffrey Dahmer and his friends.
That's right. Dexter was in the audience that day.
John Wayne Gacy.
Uh,
I'd like to introduce some very famous people in the
That's
audience
right.
today.
They must have been the feuding families.
Oh
It
my
was the
God.
serial killer group.
Let's welcome the serial killer.
Let's welcome the horror movie villains with Jason and
What do you keep in the cellar? Dead
Michael
bodies.
Myers. Tools, hooks, 3 points. Furnace 2, gun 2.
Okay.
The
Baseball
dead
cards?
bodies is the number 3 answer.
Don't give
Dead
baseball-
bodies is just amazing.
I
I
don't
got
feel
dead
bad about the
bodies in my
baseball card
basement.
answer.
Well, that was like
Oh,
that
man.
happened in like. Do you see that story in Colorado?
No, what?
I
Which is
I
like
mean, which one?
super morbid about
Oh,
the
God.
funeral home that was saying they were cremating bodies, but they actually weren't cremating bodies. They were giving families a bag of concrete, and they had 120 dead bodies rotting in
The
their basement.
smell. How could the smell not be?
I was
Like-
I was like mortified at that story that somebody would do.
That's
And
so
apparently in Colorado, there was like other funeral homes that have been rumored to be doing this, and this is one
Yeah.
of the ones that got cracked down on.
Ugh.
That's really sad.
I don't understand the business scheme of that, but that was the most disturbing story I've ever
Yeah.
heard in this.
That industry's crazy. There was a
What?
story in the UT a few years ago about, someone being
Exhumed?
exhumed to go move the gravesite, and it was an empty
It was empty?
Same sort of thing because they
Oh.
did something. I don't know, it was backwards. They put someone else there because they just didn't want to go to the trouble of
Oh,
whatever.
sorry,
Ah.
our mistake.
But you take it like people who are in that position, like it's a very take advantage of kind of industry.
Well,
right?
yeah, it's like it's a movie Poltergeist.
What happened in Poltergeist?
You move the headstones, but you didn't consider to move the bodies.
Oh.
But they built this new like neighborhood, like right, and then it was like the house was haunted. And it was built on a gravesite. They just moved the headstones, but they didn't move any of the bodies. That's what made the place haunted.
Can I say one more thing about this Shohei thing?
Of course.
Just
It's your show.
You're telling me, okay, this dude is out walking his dog, and the bookie is going to come up to Shohei and say, hey, the bookie tells Mizuhara, I'm just going to go up to Shohei and find out what's going on. You're not returning my calls, Ippei. And Shohei's dog is named Decoy?
That's his name.
That's his
right.
name, Decoy.
Decoy.
Interesting.
It's very,
Odd.
it's a nice little
Makes
wrinkle.
you think.
Ah, makes you think, doesn't it?
Makes you wonder.
It's just too good of a detail.
Insert
The dog's
Drew's-
name is Decoy.
Insert
Decoy.
Drewski meme here. Just saying.
Just saying.
Makes you think.
Not
Oh,
saying. I'm just
boy.
saying.
That ordeal. The guy just is like, "Oh, I haven't really found Ippei, but hey, look. Speaking of the devil, there's Shohei Otani and his dog in Newport Beach. That just happened to be up here."
When
That's
we come
odd.
back, a story that changed America forever. A story that completely changed our country, our culture, and I think in many ways started a division that continued for a long time. Let's talk about OJ when we come back, because OJ Simpson passed away this morning. If you did not hear that news, OJ Simpson is dead. And we're gonna talk about that when we get back. Annie and Elsten on the Fan. What's baseball really like? Join former Padre and MLB All-Star Brett Boone and his big league friends on his podcast, The Boone Podcast. 3 days a week, Brett talks with Hall of Famers, fellow All-Stars, friends, and more to get their take on today's game and to relive their greatest stories.
Baseball relievers looks like relive.
It does.
Yeah.
When they played the game. Follow the Boone Podcast in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Boone got a lot of airtime yesterday on the broadcast. He was like
Yes, he
texting
did.
Mark Grant like the whole time.
I know. I was believing it. That's why I asked Tony on the roundtable.
Yeah.
I'm like, he said dark sun on the backdrop is the toughest. And Tony's like, not for me.
Tony's like, I disagree.
I like, he said sun into darkness, which is what the guys were dealing with yesterday.
The change in light, right? When a 98 mile an hour pitch is coming toward you, fastball, whatever, has got to be just wild.
Yeah.
It's already hard enough to see. And then any kind of spin, it's just already, it's got to be so hard.
I think it's spin.
It's the spin. It's not necessarily the speed.
Because just like real talk, the physics of the whole thing and just like in your body, like the decision you make to swing at that 98 mile an hour pitch probably actually happens while the ball's in the light.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just kind of muscle memory to get to where you believe it's going to be.
And then the ball completely.
Yeah, but if the ball's going somewhere else.
and you have to make that decision. Like, as we've seen, it's like a fraction of a second or whatever. And so to have those shadows, I think those shadows are no joke. I really do. And we'll see as the season plays on what those look like.
What was your relationship to the OJ Simpson story in your life?
It wasn't until later in my life that I started to do the deep dive on this and really start to understand everything that went on with it. I remember my parents being engrossed in it. Like it was when I came home at one point, watching the chase on the freeway, watching the Bronco go down the freeway. And my sister had a Bronco. And so, there was like, but also just my dad being a huge football fan. OJ Simpson was, such a common figure, such a beloved figure in the world of football, that it was so hard to believe. And then the more that came out of it, and then the more you understood about that defense team and everything. And I haven't seen that ESPN documentary about it, but I will watch that. It just became really hard to believe that he didn't do this with all the proof that came out. But also, like, look, from the Kardashians angle, I mean, there were so many different kinds of pieces in this that keep coming up when you hear about OJ Simpson and you realize, oh, that was Kardashian's dad. And like, there's all these little jigsaw puzzle pieces that are connected to this case.
So this all happened my senior year in college, 4th and 5th year in college was, I remember it was summer 94, of course, back in Long Beach for the summer. Went with my friend, later my best man, Sean Riley, to the on-campus apartment at USC of a previous guest on Annie and Elsten, Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter, who at that time was just a senior at USC, and we played Stratomatic together. And like we went to his apartment to hang out and play Strat and watch Game 4 of the NBA Finals, which was Knicks Rockets and Patrick Ewing against Akeem Olajuwon. And it was like this. And then right in the middle of like the second quarter of Knicks Rockets, there was picture in picture the Bronco, and the Bronco chase was happening during Game 4 of the NBA Finals.
Wow.
So there was just this wild thing of watching and like watching both things at the same time.
This was pre-internet where you weren't just like looking at your phone. I mean, you were glued to a TV.
Correct. And that's the thing that I feel like, being someone, I'm 51 years old, soon to be 52 in a few months. And I realized at various points in my life, like there's certain things that a lot of people like in the audience or generation didn't experience that I experienced. This time period in the United States was a unique time period. And truly in the early 90s, there was a lot of people who kind of felt like, oh, we're in a post-racism world. We're in a post-cultural world like that. We're all in one culture. And that was revealed to be completely not the case during the OJ Simpson trial, because people's reactions to the trial fell quite often along those lines, those demographic lines. Are you a white person? Are you a black person? How do you feel? And then when he was acquitted, which I that's another thing people may not understand. People think about like, oh yeah, something that dominates the headlines these days. It is nothing like when I was 22, 23 years old. Dominating the headlines was literal. It meant anything you turned on, it was there. The OJ Simpson trial was carried on every network, and you didn't have 500 channels to go flip around. You didn't have your own feed to go and curate. Wherever you looked, this was there. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone you knew was talking about it. So of course you watched as well every day of the trial.
And that was the Bronco chase was 1994, and the Rodney King riots, I mean, that was what, 1991, 92. Yeah. I mean, it really was really close, and that was a very difficult time anyways, right?
Correct.
And you look back too, and it's like the little things that you took away from that too, like if it doesn't fit, you don't acquit, and like things like that still today are kind of like people have learned throughout the years.
Yeah, parts of the American vernacular.
Yes.
Right? Just created out of the trial and out of Johnny Cochran right there. I remember, here's one. Sports talk radio exploded during the OJ trial. I remember Jim Rome talked about that every single day. I listened to the acquittal on his show. Like, I remember I could now again remember exactly where I was. I was in the parking lot of the Ralph's in Hillcrest, like just a little bit east of the Nook in Hillcrest, and sitting in my car, because of course you couldn't put it on your phone and your earbuds and then go walk in and get your groceries while you're sitting in the car listening to the radio so that I could hear it live and listening to the reading of the jury, the jury's verdict live.
So wild. And I just think about what you just said. It wasn't like now where you had so much selection. You could, things like you said, things get a lot of traction. But our world is so split into, you can watch this, you can do that. You learn about it on social media later. Like there's so many different ways to get information that it's not the same as when that was happening. Like you said, everybody was like glued to the TV, to the radio, and that was all you were talking about.
People may also forget that there was a second trial that followed the criminal trial.
Because the civil trial,
correct. OJ was criminally acquitted. However, in a civil trial, he was found liable for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman,
and didn't pay
a debt that he'd never paid.
It's crazy to me too, because I was listening to Ben and Woods, and I thought it was kind of a fascinating conversation about how he convinced himself he didn't do it. But it's crazy that he wrote books and did document and like tried to profit off of
the entire time.
This, yes.
He literally wrote a book that was called "If I Did It."
You have to be a special kind of person, like have a certain kind of mind to do that. You know what I mean? Here's the other thing I want to mention. And I think Ben did mention this a little bit yesterday too, but I was saying, I was dropping off my son when they announced it, or we were listening when Ben and Woods announced, when it came across. And so I was telling him a little bit about it, because someone who's 12 years old, like my son James, has no idea who OJ Simpson was. And you can then, I think people even maybe in Braden's generation might go, well, he was a great football player. Like OJ Simpson was great. Was Braden even born?
I was born in 1995, so I missed it. But obviously my parents, they 100% like you guys knew exactly where they were, what they were doing, like during the Bronco chase and during the results of the trial. And it's funny, like when I was in college, that TV series came out, the true crime story or whatever of the OJ, and Craig and I were talking about it before the show. And so a lot of kids in my, it's kind of weird because I'm a tweener generation. Like I'm in between I'm part of the millennials sometimes and part of Gen Z sometimes. But most kids my age, I guess, like really dove into that when that show came out. But for the most time, like at least from my experience, OJ was always the guy. It's like we all knew, is like he's the guy that got away with murder. That's what people like know him for. And I remember when I found out, I was like, well, I guess he was an actor, and I was like, wait, he played football? Like a lot of kids my age like forgot he played football. Like I don't know him as the football player at USC and for the Buffalo Bills. You know him a little bit as an actor, and then mostly as like he has the glove that didn't fit and he has the white Bronco. I mean, that's all basically kids my age knew about OJ Simpson.
Well, let me tell you, I think it would be a very fair and, please forgive me in advance, sir, for even throwing your name in the same place. If you wanted to think about like, what would be the equivalent of somebody today being accused of murder and where they were kind of in the gestalt of public opinion and popularity and whatnot? It would be akin to Peyton Manning being accused of a murder, because it wasn't just that OJ Simpson was a Hall of Fame player. OJ Simpson was on every commercial. Like, if you were watching an NFL game or if you were watching a primetime show in the early 1980s, you were watching OJ Simpson jumping over the seats, doing hurdles in the airport, because that was the whole thing. He was the Hertz spokesman. And this commercial of him hurdling chairs in the airport and then being like, no, it's Hertz, you don't have to run to get your car, was a famous commercial. It ran forever. He was the sideline reporter for NBC for major playoff games. He would be on the pre and post game shows. He was a very popular actor and appeared in the Naked Gun movies and
it's thrown off the stadium stairs.
Had this whole comedic personality to him. So he was incredibly handsome, incredibly charismatic, incredibly well liked, and was also a pop culture figure that was on your TV constantly. Like, OJ Simpson was somebody everyone felt they knew, everyone felt they understood. And then it was like, oh my God, his wife was killed. This is horrific. And then, oh my God, they're actually accusing OJ of killing her. I mean, if you could just imagine that, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, LeBron, somebody who is like not just an athlete, but also integrated in so many levels of culture.
Sure.
Prominent pop culture star, appearing on Saturday Night Live and all that stuff.
It's great context because, it wasn't just like if you were a football fan, you knew him. Like,
some
you
random
knew him
football player.
Popular culture. And you feel terrible for Nicole Simpson's family and for Ron Goldman's family, because they never were, you could never really get peace with your children, or your loved ones lost. But to see OJ Simpson, indeed profiting off of it or just hyping whatever he was. I mean, it was hard to fathom in years to come.
He actually went to jail at one point, but that was for trying to recover things he had autographed that somebody had tried to sell, and he broke into their Las Vegas room in order to recover his stuff and held them at gunpoint, and he actually went to jail for that. But he never went to jail for murdering his wife and murdering Ron Goldman, who came back from a restaurant where Nicole Brown Simpson was eating dinner to return her glasses. One of the most unfortunate wrong place, wrong time moments in American history. He was civilly found liable. He never paid his debt, and he spent the rest of his life, quote unquote, looking for the real killer. That's what he said. He said he was going to spend the rest of his life. When he was acquitted, he said to the public he was going to spend the rest of his life looking for the real killer. And he searched every golf course in Florida the rest of his life, trying to find that real killer, and never quite found him.
Living in Florida seemed apropos.
Yeah.
I wonder now if they were to take all the evidence that they found, and again, who knows? This is another problem too, is like, when you get a call to a famous person's house in Los Angeles and a beloved person like that, and all, sometimes the police work sometimes isn't, there can be like a patting of the shoulder or
Absolutely.
a kind of, hey, we don't, and so that sort of thing happens also. And because you don't necessarily, it's your guy. It's the guy that just signed autographs for you at the game or whatever, this and that. And I'm not saying that it was, that's what happened, but there can sometimes be that sort of thing. And I tend to wonder if they were able to look at the evidence now with the way that things have, moved. I don't know. I'm sure that they would do that if they had the ability to, or if there was the evidence to show that. I don't know.
Brock on Twitter again, context. OJ Simpson was driven around by his longtime friend AC Cowlings in this Ford Bronco. He was supposed to have turned himself over to the authorities to be, booked for murder. And he drove around literally like 40 miles an hour on the freeway. It was covered. All the helicopters, the media helicopters were above. The police were trailing behind. Al Cowlings was on that time rudimentary cell phone, talking to the police, saying that OJ was going to kill himself in the car. While this was happening, the overpasses in Los Angeles,
like a rock star.
Like a rock star, right?
100% were
Yeah.
filled like
Beatles are in
like a
town.
presidential appearance or something, with people holding up signs. Oh, the juice is loose. We believe in you, juice. And again, that's just to illustrate where he was in the popular culture. In today's modern culture, ultra fractured, ultra contentious, ultra fragmented, there's nobody that could be accused in this way that you wouldn't have people go, yeah, I always knew that guy was a jerk. Like I was always against X, Y, or Z. But at that time, OJ Simpson, I'm telling you, he was revered, beloved, thought, just what a cool guy. Oh my God. And it turns out he was viciously beating his wife his entire life and insanely jealous, and then thought that she was cheating on him and killed her. And I'm sorry, he's dead now. We don't have to be like, well, maybe, I don't know. He killed her.
It's why, I mean, it's sad again for the families of the victims and to never really have true closure on any of that. And to also just know you could run into the killer, at any time, you're walking to the grocery store and, it's got to be very difficult to go through all that. And then also see the reverence in which he was admired, because even when the trial was going on and everything like that, there, he still did get, people love to kind of cheer him on to a certain extent, and so I didn't see all of that, but my parents have told me about their experience with it, and I do remember like just the world obsessed with it. And even now, you think about a lot of cases that stick with you, and that I feel like even if you weren't born then, you understand the case, like you've learned about it or you've heard people talk about it or use phrases from it, all of that.
I mean, Chris Darden, the prosecutor, him and Marcia Clark every day being up there and the arguments they were presenting.
Yes,
and as you watched for a year, you were watching for a year, watching this trial. I'm not kidding. Every day, all day on the screen. I'm going to go watch on Netflix. It wasn't like that. Everybody was watching. And if you weren't watching, then you turned on Jay Leno that night, and every single sketch he would have would be about it.
Well, there was a tweet that was kind of resurged this morning, whatever that word is, a resurgence in it, revived, where Norm Macdonald on Saturday Night Live would always make jokes about and saying that OJ Simpson was a killer and always bringing that to light, constantly. And the NBC executive warned Norm to stop doing it because OJ was his friend of that NBC executive, and eventually Norm got fired. But there were people because of that, right? But there were people that continued to bring it to light as much as they could.
A fascinating time, and as Wolfpack says, LA riots refreshing our minds. Yes, I remember being a sophomore at UCSD the night of the Rodney, which spilled into my hometown in Long Beach as well. People don't usually remember that. It was kind of third order news of the day. But I remember I actually went to a Fishbone concert that night at UCSD, which of course no one knew. And they were yelling at the audience going we shouldn't even be here, man.
Because it was so.
Yeah, we should be up there. We should be up there fighting in the streets. Because it was that,
during the riots. Right.
It was the night of the Rodney King riots. Really bad timing for that particular concert. It wasn't the best. I've been to a few Fishbone shows. It wasn't the best one. But nonetheless, just to tell you about a time in American history where things truly changed.
Yeah.
Things really changed, and it changed around this event.
And there's a comment. LA police had no idea how to handle such a case in the early 90s. And I'm sure that they had some, I don't know when DNA, I forget when DNA started to be a thing and everything like that. But I'm sure, I feel like a case today would be handled a lot differently than it was then. And
Abraham in the chat says, did OJ Simpson die or something? Yeah.
Where you been, dude?
He did, Abraham.
OJ Simpson died this morning.
Well, and his
70 something.
76, I think.
Yeah.
In his defense, we've had 1,000 sports stories happen today.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's been a big day.
Yeah, at some point at 9:00 or so coming in here, I'm like, well, we're going to talk about the Padres and then Shohei and then OJ, and then the show will be over.
Yeah.
And indeed.
Good day to be Kentucky.
It is here.
Getting embarrassed for Scott Drew not taking your job.
It is a good day to be Kentucky.
Yeah, nothing to see. We didn't really offer him nothing to see here.
1:44. We'll come back. We'll do a quick Ask Us Anything, and we will wrap it up. Annie and Elsten here on The Fan. Scrapes will keep you up to date on the Masters this afternoon.
Fantastic.
Annie, any closing thoughts?
No, great day. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow, Friday. Lots to talk
Friday.
about.
Padres
too.
Dodgers.
Bless you.
We'll have Media Melanie on for Crossing Streams. We'll play Hot Potato tomorrow. We'll have the 12 o'clock Sports Fix weekend preview. All sorts of stuff to get to tomorrow. For Annie Hobron and Braden Soprenet, I'm Craig Elsten saying stay tuned. Gwen and Chris are next. This has been Annie and Elsten on The Fan.
Bye.